In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Assalamu alaikum students. Our today's topic of the electrochemistry is about ionic activity and Debye-Huckel theory. We will discuss about the behavior of ions in solution, and we will talk about the introduction of Debye-Huckel equation and its theory. Ions in the solution and ionic activity, activity coefficient, Debye-Huckel theory, postulates of Debye-Huckel theory, Debye-Huckel equation and its components, and the limitations of Debye-Huckel theory will be discussed in this lecture. Ions, how ions behave in the solution form. Whenever we talk about the dilute solutions of the covalent compounds, for example, the solutions of carbon dioxide and ethanol, etc., in the water, they develop interactions like hydrogen bonding, dipole-dipole interaction, and these are van der Waals forces which exist between the solvent molecules and these covalent compounds. These interactions are weak interactions and they make the solutions at the very dilute level to be the ideal solutions, but whenever these solutions are not dilute, whenever their concentration is increased and they are taken at the higher concentration levels, these interactions deviate the solutions from the ideality. So covalent compounds develop weak van der Waals forces among the molecules of solvent and among the molecules of the solute molecules as well, and these interactions make the molecules at the higher concentration to deviate from the ideality. But contrast to the covalent compounds or covalent molecules, whenever we talk about the ionic species, ionic, ionic species are the substances which completely dissolve in the water, making ions, oppositely charged ions, and water and oppositely charged ions make strong interactions with each other. These strong interactions are more efficient than that of the covalent compounds. So these interactions of ionic species make ionic species solutions in the water even more non-ideal, even at the very low level of concentration. But whenever consider 0.001 molar or lower concentrations, these interactions are little bit considered to be ideal interactions, and at this concentration the molarity can be taken to be equal to molality because it is a very low level of concentration. Abide by the concentration, charges on the ions also be a factor in determination of ideality of the solution, because whenever you have to take in account the electrostatic interactions just like that of Coulomb's law. Coulomb's law defines the electrostatic interaction between two oppositely charged ions. There is a force of attraction between two oppositely charged ions or two opposite charges, and there is a force of repulsion between two same charges. Whenever we consider Coulomb's law and there are charges in the solutions, the oppositely charged ions would attract each other. The charges are whenever the charges are, because this according to Coulomb's law, the force of attraction or force of repulsion between the two charges is directly proportional to the product of the charges. So whenever we consider the divalent charges, there will be a 4 times more forces of attraction than that of the monovalent charges. Thus the behavior of KCl will be entirely different than that of the behavior of copper sulfate at the same concentration levels, because whenever you talk about copper sulfate, there are these are both ions are divalent. Copper will have a +2 charge, sulfate would have a -2 charge, and in case of KCl, these are monovalent ions like K positive and Cl negative. So the forces of attraction, which are called to be the electrostatic forces of attraction, would become 4 times more in case of copper sulfate than that of KCl. So each ion would behave differently, each electrolyte would behave differently in the solution form, and their ideality will be determined differently due to their charges as well. Concentration and number 2 charges on the ions in the solution would determine the ideality or non-ideality of the solution. In terms of activities and free energy, whenever we want to take the chemical potential of a solution, there is a well-known relationship. The chemical potential mu I or ionic chemical potential of an ion will be equal to standard ionic chemical potential curly G over curly Ni. Here Ni is the molar amount of ions, means number of moles of the ions. Curly G is the gives free energy value, temperature and pressure is the given. The ionic chemical potential in terms of standard ionic chemical potential and activity will be taken by this equation number 2. Ionic chemical potential will be equal to standard ionic chemical potential plus RT ln AI. AI will be activity of the ions, ith ions, activity of the ith ions. AI is the activity of the single component out of a mixture of ions in a solution. Then this one is a relation to find out the chemical potential of an ion or ionic chemical potential. In case of mixture of gases, not liquid solution, whenever you have a solution of gases just like that of air, activity is defined as the form of the partial pressures. The activity of ionic solute is related to the concentration in terms of molality of these solutes, means activity of an ionic solute is directly proportional to molality of that ion in the solution. We want to remove the unit of the molality from the right hand side and we want to take a proportionality constant. Whenever we put a proportionality constant here, AI is equal to gamma I. Gamma I is called as activity coefficient. Mi is the molality of the ith ion and m naught is the unit molality. It's perhaps taken to be equal to 1 molar solution, and whenever taken to 1 molar solution it would only eliminate the unit of the molality from the right hand side. Gamma is called as activity coefficient and this gamma I will be equal to 1 whenever the molality of the ions is much lower. Whenever ions or solutions are very dilute, their molality reaches to 0, gamma I would become equal to 1 and those solutions will be called to be an ideal solution. Keep in mind that whenever you increase the concentration of ions in a solution, at the start increase in concentration of ions would also increase the activity coefficient, but after a certain level, whenever you would increase the concentration, the gamma I start decreasing because you are adding more ions in the solution and those ions would interact with each other and they would form a type of recrystallization there. They would combine with each other and number of free ions would start becoming lower. So up to a certain level, whenever you would increase the concentration, gamma I value would increase. After that level, whenever the ions start combining with each other, the concentration increases but the gamma I value start decreasing. To understand the subscript I is stands for ith. For example, whenever K2SO4 is dissolved in water, two K positive ions and one sulfate ion will be formed. So if the molality of K2SO4 is 1 molar, then the molality of potassium ion will be 2 molar and the molality of sulfate ion would be 1 molar. So potassium ion molality will be different than that of the sulfate ion. Similarly, whenever we would dissolve any of the electrolyte in the solution, the molality of the positive ion will be different from the molality of the negative ion. So we would substitute the activities of the positive and negative ions both in equation number 2. We have, for example, the potential for the positive ion will be taken by this equation number 6. Potential for the negative ion will be taken for equation number 7. We have placed the value of activities here. Activity is equal to gamma I mi m naught and activity of positive ions gamma positive m naught. Actually we have placed the value of this activity from equation 4 in this equation number 2 to get the value for mu positive and mu negative, because activities and molalities of both the ions are different due to different charges and mobilities. Whenever ions would have a different charge, their mobilities would become different due to different sizes. Because the ions have different mobilities and different charges, so total chemical potential is taken to be equal to the chemical potential of a positively charged ion and chemical potential of a negatively charged ion. Both the values are added to get the total chemical potential. So total chemical potential will be equal to number of moles of positive ions, mobility of positive potential of positive ion, plus number of moles of negative ions and ionic potential of negative ions. Equation 8 will give you the total value for the chemical potential of due to both ions. Putting values of activities of both ions from equation 6 and 7 in equation 8. Whenever we place these two values, mu positive and mu negative, in this equation number 8, we would get equation number 9 as this one. Total chemical potential will be equal to this value. The equation 9 is modified by putting, whenever we talk about mean ionic molality and mean ionic activity. Mean ionic molality will be like this one. Mean ionic activity for positive as well as negative ions. For positive as well as negative ions, we have the molality. These two equations, whenever placed in equation number 9, the new n total number of moles of positive and negative ions will be equal to number of moles of positive ions plus number of moles of negative ions. Similarly, the standard chemical potential for positive and negative ions will be taken to be equal to n positive mu naught positive plus n negative mu naught negative. Putting all these values of m positive plus minus, gamma plus minus, n plus minus and mu naught plus minus here in this equation number 9, we would get equation 10 in a simplified form as this one. Mu is equal to mu plus minus naught. It is the standard ionic potential of both positive and negative ions. N plus minus naught is the total number of moles of plus and minus ions. RTLN gamma plus minus is the activity coefficient of both positive and negative ion. Similarly, molality of both positive and negative ion over standard molality, we would get equation number 10. This equation 10 is analogous to the equation number 2 we have talked about at the start of the lecture. It is just like this one equation, only the activity is defined as gamma plus minus m plus minus m naught. It means this whole value is actually equal to activity of plus and minus signs. The total activity value would become equal to gamma plus minus m plus minus over m positive over m negative. Sorry, it's equal to actually gamma plus minus m plus minus over m naught. Please make the correction of this equation. It should be gamma plus minus m plus minus over m naught. These equations explain the behavior of ionic solutions in real sense. We have talked about at the start of the lecture that whenever we talk about the solutions of electrolytes, remarkable deviations of intermolecular forces in non-electrolyte solution, there is a remarkable deviation from the ideality of the solutions of non-electrolytes other than the non-electrolytes, because whenever non-electrolytes like CO2, ethanol, etc. are dissolved in the water, they have very weak interactions and less non-ideal, having the dependence of gamma raised to the power minus 7. But whenever we talk about the solutions of ionic compounds, they show stronger interactions and their non-ideality is greater than that of the covalent compounds, and it's of the order of gamma raised to the power minus 2. So activities of individual components for calculations for ideal behavior of solution is advantageous instead of the concentration of the analytes. We will not discuss about the concentration of the analytes in order to explain the ideality of a solution, but we would talk about the activities of the ions instead of concentration of the ions. Due to these interactions, ionic activity is always less than that of the concentration of the solution. Activity, for example, whenever we talk about ionic activity, effective concentration is less than or equal to real concentration for non-ideal solution. When solutions are non-ideal, effective concentration or activity is less than or equal to real concentration. But whenever you talk about infinitely dilute solutions which are taken to be the ideal solution, then the ionic activity would become equal to ionic concentration. If concentration and activity coefficients are known, then the activity of the ions can be found like this one. Activity will be equal to concentration of the ion and activity coefficient. The product of activity coefficient and concentration is equal to activity of the ion. For ideal solutions, gamma I would be equal to 1, but for non-ideal solutions, gamma I value would be less than that of 1. So whenever you have value for activity for ideal solutions, it will be maximum will be equal to concentration, but whenever you have activity for non-ideal solution, gamma I is less than 1, then the activity would become less than that of a concentration value. The value of gamma I depends on the ionic strength of the solution, and ionic strength of the solution is given by this equation. Here sigma for ith ions is equal to Zi square Ci. Here Zi is the charge on ith ion and Ci. Ci is the molar concentration of the ion, Zi is the charge on the ion. The sum of the product of ionic concentrations and charges of ions is taken for ionic strength of the solution, because we have taken the square of the charges of ions. It means that charges of ions would drastically change the value of ionic strength, means the multivalent ions contribute greatly to the ionic strength than that of the single charged ions. For example, whenever the ionic charge would become double, the ionic strength would become 4 times, and if the ionic charge would become triple, the ionic strength would become 9 times. So whenever multivalent ions are taken, they would contribute to large extent into the ionic strength. We explain this by this example. For example, when you talk about calcium chloride, the total ionic strength can be calculated as calcium charge square into calcium ion concentration plus chloride charge square into concentration of chloride, and calcium ion concentration is equal to concentration of calcium chloride, while the chloride ion concentration is equal to double the concentration of calcium chloride, because each calcium chloride molecule will give 2 chloride ions. So chloride ion concentration is twice the concentration of calcium chloride. So placing the charges here, calcium charge is equal to plus 2, 2 raised to the power to 4, minus 1 raised to the power 2 into 2. So 2 plus 4, 6 divided by 2, 3. Ionic strength will be 3 into calcium chloride ion concentration will be, in this way will be, ionic strength will be taken. Now we talk about Debye-Huckel theory and some postulates of the Debye-Huckel theory. Actually, to explain the behavior of the electrolytes in solution forms and to calculate the mean ionic activity, Peter Debye and Eric Huckel in 1923 put forward a theory, and an equation is derived called as Debye-Huckel equation. It explains the behavior of ions in the solution, determining the mean ionic activity coefficient value. The important assumptions of the theory are taken to be: complete dissociation of electrolyte take place in the solution. This theory says that whenever you take a solution of any electrolyte, 100% of the electrolyte is dissolved in the solution. So this one theory will become true for the strong electrolytes, not for the weak electrolytes. The solution must be very dilute, of concentration of the order of 0.001 molar or less. It says that the concentration of the solution must be 0.001 molar or less than that of this concentration. Ions are considered to be spherical and these are not polarized by surrounding electric field. This theory supposes that ions are not polarized and ions are spherical one. It says that the solvent must play the role of the medium it should not contribute in any other way. So according to this theory, a solvent should play the role of a medium and its dielectric constant will be a constant value. Oppositely charged ions completely surrounds ions in electrolytic or electrolyte solutions. It says that this theory says that whenever you take a electrolyte solution and there is a positive ion, it will be surrounded by the negative ions in the solutions, and a negative ion will be surrounded by the positive ions in the solution. These are five postulates or assumptions which are taken for this theory. Debye and Huckel developed a well-known equation in by considering all these assumptions, and this their equation to find out the activity coefficient is like this one: log gamma plus minus for the both ion activity is equal to 1.824 multiplied by 10 to the power 6 over epsilon, which is a dielectric constant of the solvent. T is the temperature taken in Kelvin, raised to the power 3 by 2, mod Z positive, charge of positive ions, charge of negative ions into ionic strength square root. Epsilon is the dielectric constant value, Z positive and Z negative are the charges of cations and anions respectively. I is the ionic strength value. This equation 13 is known as Debye-Huckel limiting law, and ionic strength can be calculated by using equation number 12. We have taken the equation number 12 like this one. The ionic strength will be calculated by this way and can be placed here in this equation. The most of the electrolytic solutions are made in water and they are taken at 25 degrees centigrade or 298 Kelvin. So if you place the temperature value is equal to 298 Kelvin and epsilon value for the water is equal to 78.54, putting these values in equation number 13, we would get the value for the log plus minus gamma plus minus activity coefficient. Log of activity coefficient of both ions will be equal to minus 0.509, Z positive Z negative mod and I square root. It will be the value for the, it's the simplest form of the equation number 13 or Debye-Huckel equation whenever taken at room temperature of 25 degrees centigrade to 98 Kelvin and epsilon value are taken to be equal to 78.54 in case of water as a solvent. Limitations of Debye-Huckel theory. This theory is oversimplified to explain the behavior of electrolytes in the solution form. This theory successfully gives the mean ionic activity coefficient of very dilute solutions. It is true for very dilute solution which have the concentration of 0.001 molar or below this concentration level. This theory is applicable, but it is not applicable on higher concentration values. Following are some possible reasons for the deviation of this theory from the experimental results. Actually, it this theory says that complete ionization complete ionization of an electrolyte take place in the solution, but complete dissociation of electrolyte into the ions is not possible. It's experimentally not possible, particularly in the case of ions of higher charges. This correction was later on done by Niels Bohr. For weak electrolytes, complete dissociation is not possible in the solution. Every weak electrolyte has its own dissociation constant. So, in order to consider the solutions of weak electrolytes, we must take in account the dissociation constants, and these dissociation constants must be applied for the solutions of weak electrolytes. Hence, the necessary corrections are required to calculate activity coefficients of weak electrolytes. Ions are spherical whenever taken to be the single charged or single atomic ions, but these are not point charges. And whenever you and these are not polarized. Whenever we talk about the single atomic ions, these are spherical but not point charges, and these are not polarized. But when we talk about polyatomic ions, these are not spherical and are polarizable as well. So the idea about the charges and by considering the ions just like that of the static charges is not good to take. So Debye-Huckel theory, this postulate of Debye-Huckel theory is also a limited, and it does not explain the behavior of electrolytes to be the ideal. The role of the solvent is not only to be used. Debye-Huckel theory consider that the solvent is only playing the role of a medium and it has some dielectric constant value. But here eh, the solvents are not structureless, but they are consist of molecules as well, and molecules are dipolar. For example, water is used as a solvent and it's a dipolar and polarizable. These ion solvent interactions are completely ignored in derivation of Debye-Huckel theory. The solvent also make interactions with that of the ions, and these interactions or polarizability of the ions or the of the solvent due to ions must be considered. These are few limitations of this Debye-Huckel theory. So it is not workable to all electrolyte solutions, but this theory is workable on the strong electrolyte solution, and whenever the electrolytes are consist of only monatomic single charged ions, this theory works to much extent but not on the weak electrolytes. This was all about the today's lecture. The student must be able to answer all these questions after learning this lecture. Assalamu alaikum, Allah Hafiz.